In this chapter, we head to APAC to discuss CBA, a revolutionary force in Australia's mortgage industry, moderated by Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News. Angie, all yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News, where we cover emerging technologies that shape our world. And I'm truly excited to be here with all of you. Thanks for joining us today at Mambu Summit Chapters. Now, it is all about customer first. It is the 21st century after all. And I'm excited to help kick things off as we explore what that actually means at Mambu. A very warm welcome to our speakers for this conversation. Myles Bertrand, MD, Mambu APAC joins us. Hi, Myles.
Hey, Angie. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. And we also welcome Pete Murray, Head of Business Development, FSI, ASEAN, and at AWS. Pete, it's great to have you.
Hi, Angie. Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, we've got Brendan Harrap. He's Chief Architect at CBA. And we're going to do a little deep diving with you, Brendan, so get ready.
Looking forward to it, Angie.
All right, folks, are you ready? We are here for this panel, CBA, a revolutionary force in Australia's mortgage industry, and we're going to learn exactly how they're going to do that in the 21st century. Let's get started with how critical it is to have a support ecosystem. And let's dive into this case study right now of CBA's Unloan, set to revolutionize the Australian mortgage industry. And get this, able to provide loan refinancing approvals in less than 10 minutes. Now that's incredible. For customers, for the ecosystem, for the system, for the infrastructure. But what was the critical role and partnership support that Mambu and AWS played? So Brendan, let's kick things off with you right now. As Chief Architect at CBA, what was the vision the company had, the bank had, and what was the initial thinking and challenges? And why reach out to Mambu?
Yeah, I think it was a great question because it occupied a lot of our early thinking, right, on how we'd actually navigate through this. I think, for Unloan, a little bit about Unloan, it was came out of our X15 ventures and really is helping us sort of think a little bit outside the square in terms of what we want to achieve and aspire to. Unloan really is around that simple, initially that simple refinance type of model where, in that 10-minute type of time frame, we can refinance you to a best price interest rate. And what we sort of noticed is that, despite all the lockdowns and all the different things that have happened through the pandemic, there is real strong demand still in the housing market, and customers continually getting more savvy around how to get that best deal that suits them. And so we wanted to play a key role in that. And speed in switching is obviously fundamental to that. It traditionally can be quite complicated to switch or refinance home loans. So that was sort of the premise. We had to actually work out very quickly, okay, well, do you build on your legacy technology stack and all the sort of challenges that might, because they're not built that way from the start. And these are systems that could be, some new things, but some older ones. But also we actually wanted to try and take a step in the right direction in terms of a modern architecture. So there's no real better opportunity than when you're going out to market with a new brand like Unloan to actually take that step forward to pave the way potentially for the rest of the group in the future. And so really that was what it came down to. And so we quickly looked at what are the sort of modern architecture practices and patterns that we wanted to build. And as many of you know, AWS is our primary cloud provider, and Mambu really ticked all the boxes in terms of componentizing our architecture and our technology, which essentially means breaking it into smaller components, focused on doing an individual thing very, very well. And that's really what Mambu is about. So we were all in, and we went down that path and built this out in about 8 or 9 months, which was tremendous.
8 to 9 months, that's like a month per minute and less than 10 minutes to get those approvals. Myles, this is probably one of your dream clients, your dream partnerships. to have one of the big fours to really adapt to the kind of changes that you've been helping lead, at Mambu. There's a lot under the hood, as it were, that underpins CBA's Unloan. Tell us about the digital technologies at play. And when Mambu was first approached by CBA, what was the challenge that you felt, that you need to overcome? And also, what was the process? What kind of client relationship did you want to nurture as you forged the path together?
Great question, Angie. I think couple of things there. For us, the most interesting thing, it was a long time. We actually engaged with the bank for almost 18 months, almost 2 years from the initial conversation. And there were lots of different types of conversations. But I think the thing for us was that as a sort of a growing business, and we've sort of grown up with this next generation approach, but actually seeing a tier one, probably, a top 50 bank in the world looking to really step outside the norm and think about providing services differently and banking differently was the real exciting thing, having that really great connect with Brendan and his team very early on. Because fundamentally, we do believe it's not necessarily about the technology, it's actually really fundamentally about the culture. The bank was prepared to actually step outside its normal way of doing things, think differently, and actually look to us really to sort of actually drive them to think differently, not just to sort of come in and try and adapt to the way the bank has done things for years and years. Brendan sort of tasked myself and my team to sort of challenge us, make us think differently, make us approach the model differently. And I think when you have that sort of interaction, you collaborate really, really well together. And I think hopefully Brendan agrees, but that's why the project has been so successful, because we really got ahead of that really early on in the piece, made sure we were aligned, and then we were able to collaborate and work so well together. And even for us as an organization, dealing with an organization like CBA does require a change in thinking for us as well. We have a very singular model on how we typically deal with our customers, but even then we have to adapt to be able to support the likes of an organization as large as CBA. I think the exciting thing is that we've been able to make it work really well, and we hope we can continue to do that in the future with not just mortgages, but potentially other workloads and other products that we can help the bank with. So yeah, it's been really exciting from that perspective. It's actually helped us develop and evolve as an organization as well.
Well, it's a beautiful marriage. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if I just add to what Myles is saying there, and it's the same with how we work with AWS. We're very good in a bank at just telling the partners and stuff the solution, and it's actually trying to step back from that a little bit and saying, listen, let's work out what the need and the problem is and work together on that. And that's where you get that. At Myles' end, they needed to adapt. We certainly needed to adapt, and it's the same relationship we have with AWS, where we build that common understanding. It is so critical to getting those outcomes.
Pete, AWS plays such a critical role, not only for CBA, working with Mambu as well, but so many, financial services firms across the region, around the world. It's important to note that there is an ecosystem of partners at play. I'm curious to know, at AWS, what were the conversations with CBA that crystallized how you wanted to support with innovation? How did you work with Mambu? How did you work with CBA to really create that support ecosystem?
Sure. I think from an AWS perspective, whether it's a tier one organization like CBA or a fintech startup in Thailand, or a scaling and digital native challenger in Vietnam like a TNEX, or any type of customer, the way that we work with all of our customers is via a concept called working backwards. And this is basically to try and really focus on who the end customer, who the end consumer, who the individual, and this whole concept of a customer of one, and really identify what is the pain point or the challenge or the opportunity for that consumer, and then work with our customer, in the case of our teams who work with CBA, of course, working directly with CBA, and identify who are the different types of partners who could potentially come together and drive an outcome which would solve a problem or delight that end customer of one. So from our perspective, whether we're working directly with a trusted partner like Mambu, working directly with a tier one and very, very forward-thinking organization like CBA, or working all together, we're always going to really, really focus on what is the problem that we're solving here? What is the challenge that we're trying to overcome, or what's the business potential here from this solution? Because I think when we do that, we really then are able to apply technology to problem solving as opposed to innovation for innovation's sake. And I think in financial services, this is our biggest singular opportunity across certainly Southeast Asia, where I spend the majority of my time, is to really, really focus on how we're making it better for the end consumer. Because if we can focus on that end consumer, that end customer, make things better for them, then I think as an industry, we're going to continue to sort of raise the bar together on what consumers are actually able to access in terms of financial services, and also, most importantly, in a lot of emerging markets, financial inclusion as well. So yeah, love the story from Brendan. I actually could sit back and just listen to customers talk about what they're doing, their vision, and the solution they're trying to deliver, because that for us at AWS is one of the most inspiring things about hearing from our customers about what they're doing and how we can help.
And it's not really, go ahead.
I was just going to add, Angie, I think that's one of the key things as well. I think you've got, from a global provider like AWS, you've got a specialist service provider like a Mambu, and you've got a great customer in CBA. But I think what we're all seeing is there is a fundamental change in the industry to move more towards this partnership ecosystem model and really working collaboratively together. And I really like what Pete says, this, from the customer of one, and really having that outside in view. I mean, not speaking of Brendan, but, we see a lot of organizations that, sign up to new technology, but then they repeat the sins of the past. I think it's the fact it's not just about signing up to new technology, to cloud, to SaaS solutions like Mambu, but actually thinking about how you embrace that and how you do that differently. And I think that's a real critical part to this as well, is that we're seeing a diagrammatic shift in the industry, particularly across Asia Pacific, right across the region. And it's great that you've got leaders like CBA leading the charge. But to Pete's point, we're seeing it in Vietnam, we're seeing it in Thailand, we're seeing it right across the region, and it's super exciting.
I want to actually follow up with you, Myles. You said something really interesting. It's more than just digital transformation. It really is about changing mindsets versus, repeating the sins of the past, as you've said. What are the critical steps to success? Obviously the technology is all around us. We can access it. But what is the difference, as you've seen it, where it has landed and it has innovated internally and externally, it has been a success, versus there were attempts, but there were certain obstacles, sins of the past were committed?
I think I'll go back to sort of what I said before, and I'm sure Brendan will jump in here as well. But, you've heard the analogy, leopards don't change their spots. It's actually people fundamentally. And you've got a lot of people, particularly in well-established banks, that have been doing the same job for the past 15 or 20 years. And you come along with something shiny and new, and that's just a little bit scary, and not everybody's up for that. So we've really seen that when you get that cultural shift, when you get senior executives and champions internally, and not to make Brendan feel good, but someone like a Brendan within an organization that really wants to drive that change. Simplification is a word that I've heard Brendan use. And I know Pete's the same as well. It really comes down to that you get the right people aligned. And what we've found in our experience with established banks is once you get over that cultural hump, the rest is actually quite easy. The technology becomes quite easy. It's actually getting that mindset change. And, and quite often for us, that's actually the biggest challenge we have when we're talking to potential customers, is actually getting them to think differently.
Yeah. I think that's spot on, Myles, and it's a complicated world, right? Because you've got the people who they know how to provide this service. We've been providing that service for decades, right? In that way, it works. It's resilient. It ticks all the boxes in terms of the world that we live in today. And then, so there's that challenge, and say, actually, we need to start aspiring to doing something bigger and growing that purpose. But then there's also this noise of shiny new toys, half of which don't really add or play to the customer of one sort of model. So you do have to try and sift through that and work out and then make your strategic decisions from there, and then drive hard. And a lot of it, as Myles was saying, does come back to the people. And the more open those conversations are, in terms of, rather than just saying this is the answer, do it this way, and saying actually this is more the need or the problem that we're trying to solve, or the customer we're trying to delight, the better the outcome, which is just that, the golden rule, that diversity of thought will get a better outcome.
I was just going to say, but you have to balance that, Angie, as well, though, because you can't walk away from the regulatory requirements, the compliance requirements. Regulators still don't like you to sort of take these giant leaps forward, to Brendan's point about shiny new toys, and lose sight of the risk and the compliance side. So there's a real balancing act that has to go on to maintain that and keep that important. And I think that's where, organizations like us and AWS in particular, and, we leverage them very heavily just to, we call it the three-party model, that all three of us in this example here on this call, we're in it together to make sure we're mitigating that compliance and that risk side, and supporting that for both Brendan's organization, but then also Pete and ourselves as the service providers.
Pete, I'm curious to hear how you think about mindset. Yeah,
no, the one observation I was going to make, Angie, to your very valid question, is our experience is we see large organizations have 4 key sort of ingredients to go on this long-term digital transformation. This goes beyond sort of cloud technology. The first one is to ensure that you've got senior leadership alignment on the why. The how will become clear over time, but the why is super important upfront. Why are we taking this step? And being able to answer that is very important from the board down. And we're spending a lot of time with boards, not just CTO and CIOs, who are obviously critical, and heads of architecture like Brendan, but making sure that we're spending time with chief risk officers, CHROs, boards, CEOs. Why? The second step is to actually establish a bold vision. Now, I love the Unloan story. I'm not as close to it as others, but to have a refinance approved in 10 minutes for a consumer, that's going to delight a consumer. So that's a very bold vision. Now, we recognize there might need to be some flexibility on the tactics that get employed on the way to execute against that vision, but it is a very bold vision to rally teams around, developer teams, engineers, sales teams, all the different teams, finance, legal, who are going to be part of this process. Having that bold vision to rally everyone is crucial. We see that repeated over and over again. The third step is training, enablement. People, it's not enough to say we're going on a journey. We've also got to arm people with the skills and enable them. And that's an area where we love to work with large customers, and obviously, the culture of someone like a Mambu, also encouraging people to skill and reskill and discover the art of the possible, but do that with a really strong backbone of skills and training and enablement. And then the final point, which is super important, is to get started and to actually get moving and make speed a choice. It doesn't mean necessarily deploying everything overnight, but it does mean actually having conviction that you're going to get moving on this digital transformation journey. You've got senior leadership team alignment, you've set a bold vision, you're enabling and skilling your teams, but it's vital to actually start this journey, start deploying things, start testing things, start showing people the output of their efforts as well, to continue to engender the excitement. And if you've got that really sort of stubborn vision to gather everyone around, we just see that as being just a key ingredient in success. But all of those things do need to come together, and it needs to be a very conscious effort to drive that. But as I said, to bring it back to Brendan and the team at CBA, I love the bold vision and very clear vision, and the way that they're going to go on that journey is going to be a great one for the end consumer.
I'm really hearing that the technology is the easy part, tongue in cheek, but really it's the culture that is actually more critical to the application of digital transformation. And it's clear that there must be philosophical alignment across the board and with your digital transformation and innovation partners to kind of take those bold moves. Brendan, when you were tasked with, really pushing this project forward, it is, as Pete and Myles rightly pointed out, it is, for a Big Four, a century-old bank, this is an incredible move, right? It's very intimidating, even for the most agile of companies, and no clear outcome of what potentially would be a success or failure, and just being bold about it. What kind of drove the team to pursue that innovation? What really drove kind of those internal conversations?
Well, I think there's two parts to that, right? We're very, the teams who are at the helm of the, this actual product and this offering and what we want to offer to customers, they do a lot of work to make sure that they understand what the customer's needs are, right? So as a chief architect, I back that work that they do there. They know their business and they know exactly what really is going to be meaningful for our customers, which is really the purpose for us, and identifying that. But then the other side of it, when it comes into technology, which is where I played the role there, was okay. Well, we could do this the way we've always done it and just try and amp it up with what we've got, or we could actually take a step in a new direction, and that was the fork in the road, really. And I vividly remember it still now when we got to that point. And you know what, I think the whole team, both on a business perspective and more technology, so we were operating as a single team, but if you sort of take the two parts, we were absolutely determined to face any of those challenges, to get this thing out in front of our customers as quickly as we could in a safe, sound, secure way, not compromising on any of the quality. And we were going to do it, in a really strategic way, that we could actually, so that it's not just something that we put out there and great, we've done that. It's actually something we can go on from a technology perspective and build upon and go further. And a few sleepless nights as we sort of worked through exactly what it meant from a technology challenge and a mindset challenge and cultural sort of challenge. But credit to all the team involved. We rallied behind it, and they worked so hard and still working so hard on that. It's been fantastic.
I mean, Pete, Myles, from your vantage point at AWS, at Mambu, CBA, no doubt a leader, but how are other tier ones starting to follow this trend?
Very quickly, from an AWS perspective first, I think what's really exciting across Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, is it is a lot of the tier one leaders who are really making sort of these decisions, and they're anchoring it in what's important and valuable for their customers. Obviously, CBA is a great example, but we've got a number of different organisations across Southeast Asia who are also taking that sort of very bold and visible step to transform and to drive digital transformation with that really specific end game of improving things for their consumers. We could rattle through names across the industry, but I think what's most important is everyone's doing it a little bit differently, and some are really, really focusing on their data and analytics journey as being something that is going to really anchor value for their customers. DBS in Singapore have shared a lot of examples about the way that they're anchoring their transformation in leveraging advanced technologies for the consumer experience, the customer experience. We mentioned a bank, a challenger bank in Vietnam, TNEX, which AWS and Mambu are very fortunate to partner on, and they focus very, very much on a type of consumer who has been, unbanked or underbanked for too long in that market, and they've focused on, again, technology as an enabler, but very, very clear focus on the end customer and what they're going to be able to support that end customer with, leveraging technology. That's an example of a digital banking challenger. In insurance, I know that we're here to talk about banking, but we see insurers as well really taking some big, bold steps as well to improve the customer experience. And of course, Singlife in Singapore or FWD across Asia Pacific are good examples, again, of a real relentless focus on their end customers. And technology will be an enabler of that clear vision. So, yeah, I'm very excited about what we're seeing across Asia Pacific. I think it's going to create great outcomes for end consumers, which is the most important thing, right? Like that's why we're all here. And
absolutely,
it's great to have visible leadership from the likes of CBA to sort of, raise the bar for the industry and really encourage people to take those big, bold steps.
And I wish we could talk about this so much more, but we've run out of this incredible treasure of a conversation. It's been pretty incredible to see the speed of innovation transforming, as you said, a big four, a century-plus-old bank with global reach, and firmly what people thought would be an entrenched firm into a leader in digital banking. We heard that it really is about being aligned across cultures. And we also learned that Asia Pacific is absolutely leading the way in terms of examples in technology and, more important, leadership. One of the top in the world at CBA with such a global reach across so many continents with partners like AWS and Mambu. It is not a journey made alone. It is a journey made together for the end consumer. The customer must come first. And thank you, Brendan, Pete, and Myles for really reinforcing that message for us at this chapter. And no doubt we look forward to more such insightful sharing sessions in the future. There's a lot of idea generation happening from this chat. Audience, thank you for joining us. And panelists, Myles and Brendan and Pete, it was such a pleasure speaking with you. It was a deep thanks and deep gratitude from me.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.